Welcome to Triangle BNI. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. Folks, you need professionals in the digital world to help you understand the best way to get your message out. And the best way to do that is to go to professionals like the folks at Oak City Tech. Talk to Drago and his team there. They will help you get your message out and the correct message out to the right people so you can grow your business. Go to oakcitytech.com. Tell them what you're looking for. I know they'll be able to help. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Manning. Each week on Triangle BNI, we bring you a local small business success story. If you are not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. And today we'll talk about the extended areas of the Triangle with our guest. But each week there are 31 chapters and about 530 members. Our business is to help each other grow their businesses. And our guest today is Chip Galusha. Chip is with Legal Shield. He is a member of GVO2, which is one of the two Greenville chapters. They meet Tuesday mornings at 8 a.m. Chip, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
So the Triangle, there are two chapters in the Greenville area. You are part of Triangle BNI, but
Yes,
you are just a tick east of us, but not forgotten. I want you to know that.
it's a very big triangle.
It is. It is. Chip is also a consulting director, like myself. We also help launch new chapters for Triangle BNI, so we get to meet new people all the time. And
Mhm.
if you or somebody you know is interested in joining a chapter or starting their own, Chip and I will be happy to help you. And my information's up here. His information is up there. We talk, lucky you, we talk many times a week because I call a lot, don't I?
We do. We do. If we haven't talked 4 times a week, I feel like it's a holiday. I mean, somebody must be not working this week.
I know. Because I do this with, we also work with, Steve Hand owns, Triangle BNI. We work a lot with his daughter, Leora. And sometimes I'll just call her. It's like, look, I got to call right now because otherwise I'll forget. So I need to call. I know we just talked an hour ago, but I'll forget if I don't call you right.
I have stopped starting my text to her with the words "I'm sorry." I just, I just, it is what it is.
Yeah. Legal Shield is one of the many hats you wear. We'll get to, I don't know if an hour will give us enough time to cover all the hats you wear, but by golly,
Love hats.
we'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
Legal Shield, it's one of those things, Chip, we don't need it till we need it, right?
Yep. And I think that there's a couple misconceptions about. Well, there's books on lawyer jokes, so there's a bunch of misconceptions about lawyers, and there's the idea that I don't need a lawyer unless X or Y or Z happens. But in fact, there's a lot of times when it's nice to be able to say, well, gee, I don't know. Let me call my lawyer. And that's really kind of what we're all about.
You explain Legal Shield perfectly when you use the Netflix
Yeah.
analogy.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if I came up with that or not, but probably not. But it's just Netflix for the legal system. It's this idea that you pay a reasonable amount um, a month and you can call a lawyer anytime, 24/7 emergency service. You've got a question. I've called them for some pretty ridiculous things, but because it's just there. I mean, sure, you could say, well, I could save some money and Google it, but who knows? Also, didn't mean to turn that noun into a verb, but who knows what you're going to get and what the backup of that is. But this is a way of, for like I said, for budget friendly amounts. Anytime you want, you just call a lawyer. You can ask a question. I went into a store. I'll tell you, went into a store the other day, and they had a sign that said, "Cash is not accepted, cards only." And the A is weird, I thought, and B, I had always been under the impression. This is good. I love going on like national media and admitting I was wrong. I like going under the impression that you couldn't refuse cash, because what happens if nobody takes currency anymore? Read Tom Clancy's Debt of Honor. It explains the whole thing. And I thought that's really weird. So I said, you know what? I'm going to call my attorney. So I put in a call to him and I said, hey, I was in the store. I was just curious, is this legal? And they came back and they said, yes, it absolutely is legal. Businesses do not have to accept cash, which I thought was interesting. But it's one of those things where you're just curious and you knew. And so there's kind of a side benefit to that, besides all of the great things like, reviewing contracts and getting your will done and all that kind of thing. But it's just fun to be able to have a knowledgeable source at your beck and call.
And this is not strictly for business purposes. This is your
Mm.
life. You have access to a lawyer anytime you need it.
Yeah, personal. Like the kids up to 26. That whole definition. It's great if kids are away at college and signing leases on apartments and move traffic tickets, things like that, and or all the way up to businesses, starting a business, running a business, any of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's for a little bit of everything, and there's multiple plans. If you're a delivery driver, if you're running Uber Eats or something like that, if you're starting a business out of your home, if you got a side hustle, there's all kinds of protections, and just you need access really to the legal system. The CEO of our company said that was pretty profound. Says that I'm going to test myself. 14th Amendment gives you equal protection under the law. What Legal Shield gives you is equal access, and I think that's a pretty important point.
Yeah, because we all know that if I call a lawyer, that's at least $125 an hour billable,
Yep.
and that's
And
the whole purpose of why you're there and why Legal Shield is there.
right, right. And don't get me wrong, you may need that.
Mhm.
And there are things that will be $200, $300 an hour that you'll need. And that's great. But wouldn't it be nice to know for not much that you absolutely need that? And then when you get into that situation, and there are things that the like, there I'm gonna burn this analogy. There are movies that Netflix doesn't have. And sometimes you have to go to the theater and pay theater rates. But you've got a consultation, you've talked to a qualified attorney, you know what's going on, and they're saying, yes, this is the path you need to take. And so you're comfortable then when you step out and have to pay that kind of money.
And, my sister and I were talking on the phone this morning. She was driving around town, running some errands, and we're just catching up on what's going on, and she had mentioned that her and her husband's will. They were, updating it. So just simple things like that where you ask some questions of, "Hey, should I have this in there?" is another reason to call Legal Shield.
Yeah, and have your will done and have an annual update to it. And if you want to just text me your number, I'm happy to give her a call. But you can sign that up, and so you want advanced directives, you want powers of attorney. I have family members who were in the hospital in the ER over the pandemic, and oh my goodness, now I can't sign for you. I need a power of attorney, and so you can call up. You have the power of attorney done. They send it to you, and you're good to go. And the law firms, there's a law firm in every state and in every Canadian province. And so they're dealing with your state laws. And so whenever you need that, you call them up, you send them the information, they write up the power of attorney, they send it back to you, and you're good to go. So yeah, for things big and small, it's really a good thing to have. And again, a lot of times I think it's that I just need to have that initial consultation and then figure out where to go from there. And you have the peace of mind knowing that your path is where you need to be.
And for folks who have aging parents, there are issues that come up, medical power of attorney, simple
Mhm.
things like, you should get, like my brother did this with both, our mom and dad. They were divorced, but he got on bank accounts on both of their bank accounts. So the
Yeah.
transition, when they both went, after they had died, and then you got to transition, go through the estate and everything like that. Just those simple things that he knew, but a lot of people don't, helped a ton because there's somebody else I know that wasn't done. And that was 5 months to get everything
Yeah. Oh,
straight, just to settle the estate.
yeah, I have a client that's been going on 2 years. Now, but it's a question of one parent had passed away without a will, and so this been working on it for 2 years. Um, and she said, "Never again," and signed up for the plan and immediately went and told her mother, asked her mother, "Do you have a will?" And her mom looks at her weird. She says, "Look, I don't care what it says.
Yeah.
Just do you have one?" And her mother said, "Yes." And she said, "Okay." Right?
Yeah.
Because just because of that stress that you go through that you really don't need to at that point in time.
And especially if you have kids, you do not,
Mm.
I'm not knocking every government, but you don't want your government deciding what happens to your kids or your grandkids.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, or your house or your all of that stuff. But yeah, especially kids.
Yeah.
You need to have guardians stated and what happens if that guardian and that sort of thing. And then once a year. And there's like a bunch of things you do in January, right? You always run that freecreditreport.com report. You check this, and then you just have a thing and you just sit down and you reread your will and you say, did anything change last year? And if it did, you call up, You send them an email, these things changed, they rewrite it, they send it back down, and you're good to go for the next year.
Is there a commonality of your last 4 or 5 clients and why they called you?
If I not in a specific way, but the larger commonality is a question of peace of mind. It is a question of, I need to know this, and there's so many things that legal stuff covers in terms of, different areas of the law and different reasons to have it. But I think the overarching concern is just, here's the thing, and if I need it, I can call. And it's not a question of, oh, if you need a lawyer, therefore you did something wrong. There's all kinds of reasons why you could be um, identified as somebody else. Your car could be similar to another car. All these things that you may need to want to do. And if you just want that peace of mind, and if you just want to know that if you have a question, and it's not going to be, like you said, that initial fee, it's not, $200 an hour. It's, you can call up, you can find out, and you can have peace of mind. And I think that's really the big thing that happens in our world, is people just want a little peace of mind.
Yeah, and if you look at it correctly, it's, probably best used for planning purposes.
No, absolutely. It's all proactive, and things happen. I mean, it's not uncommon. I don't know. I'm not asking for show of hands or anything, but I speeding tickets are kind of common. And if you're coming back from vacation and you were in, a Western county somewhere, and now you've got to go back, right? The one thing is this, you actually literally take your smartphone, take a picture of the ticket, send it up to the law firm, and they will send it out and dispatch it or refer it. There's a good word. They'll refer it, right, to a lawyer in that town, and that lawyer will take care of it, and you don't have to go back to court. And so again, peace of mind. This where we at. So yeah, it's a nice thing to have. You have insurance, you have car insurance, you have house insurance, you have personal insurance. It's just, in a sense, it's kind of an insurance.
When was your last speeding ticket?
A long, long time ago,
Me
I
too.
decided that I just didn't really want that hassle, and I was okay with people like making fun of me for driving
Mm,
5 miles over the speed limit.
yeah.
And yeah, and I do. And I did get one time driving one of my daughters to a horse riding lesson because we were running a little bit late. Got stopped. Cop put the ticket. We got back in the car, got going again, and my daughter says, "Hurry up, we're going to be late." I'm like, "Did you not? You missed that whole thing with the officer right there." Yeah,
That's
yeah,
coming out of your inheritance, dear, but I'll
yes, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah. So
mine
it
yeah.
has been it's been quite a while.
I think mine was like 2001-ish. We'd moved to Daytona. We're living there. It's about a year and a half in, and one day I
Everybody
just
drives fast in Daytona, don't
well,
they?
no, I was late going through the neighborhood, and sure enough, you see the blue lights behind you, and you're like, "Oh, man." But so that would have been so I'm going on about 21 years not having one,
Mhm.
and again, I've missed nothing,
Yep.
because I'm not speeding, and, but I always show up early, so I always build in 5
Yeah, there you
minutes.
go.
So if there's
Much better
construction
way to tackle that.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Gene pool from my mom of, waking up early, showing up early is paid off, and just got I was mad when I got that ticket because
See that, and
I
that's the
knew.
thing. It's just, that's what you just avoid. It's just that,
Yeah.
it's not worth having that
Well,
whole.
and then it's not the, I'm gonna say that ticket was 45 bucks.
Mhm.
This was 20 years ago, I don't know, but then the first thought is, crap, there goes the insurance rate, and,
Yep.
you see the blue lights, and you're like, "Dude, come on, give me a pass here." And he didn't,
Yeah.
and he shouldn't have. I wasn't fast, but I think I was going 45 or, 35 or something like that, and yeah, it just pissed me. So, nah,
Yep.
I haven't had one
Yep.
in a while, which is good. Alright, so I'm gonna say you're kind of a renaissance man. I'm gonna
I
use that, but I can defend it,
I
alright?
appreciate that. I appreciate that.
So I've got you in no particular order.
Mhm.
The banking world, technology, architecture, education, and finance, just in the different roles you've had, and I know that's because 'cause you're so talented, not because you kept getting fired from jobs, you had to go find a new
I
job.
appreciate your
Yeah.
positive
Yeah,
spin
well,
on
we've
that.
known each other long enough.
I'm curious about where you got the architecture from.
Something on your one of the places on your LinkedIn bio said
It's a software architect. It was
yes.
a little different.
Okay, all right. Well,
I
listen,
didn't build buildings.
dude, it's
Software.
my story. Let me tell it, all right?
Okay, sorry. I'll just sit back. You go ahead.
But but lately, or one of the things you do in Greenville, other than so there's a couple of things you do in Greenville that I know are a lot of fun. One is the Legal Shield you enjoy.
I do.
The one I like that you're doing that I want to do something here in the fall. You teach a leadership and
Mhm.
professional development in the College of Business at East Carolina.
Yes.
I know that gives you great joy because I know you like helping and passing it on to others.
It's yeah. Some days equal parts joy and frustration, but that's the way it goes.
You mean because you're
Yeah.
dealing with younger kids? Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. The indestructible
Yeah.
mindset of youth is kind of
Yeah.
fun. But I do really, as you say, enjoy the program. There's kind of a bit of a history to it, but essentially the short version is that, and this is a while ago, before I got there, 10, 15 years ago, there was the stories that a large accounting firm had stopped recruiting at ECU with their graduates, and the dean of the then dean of the College of Business just called him up and said, "Hey, I'm curious, you know." And this is a business lesson here, right? You lose a customer, you lose a client, you call them up, find out why. And so he called him up and said, "Hey, I'm curious why you're not recruiting anymore." And they said, "Well, I mean, your kids are good, but." And I always pick on accounting, and I shouldn't, but like accounting's accounting, right? I mean, you learn the accounting that you learn at Harvard or Yale or East Carolina or a community college. It's accounting. Professors might be different, but the facts are the same, and the knowledge is the same, and what you learn in marketing and all of that are all the same. And they said, but we're coming, hundreds of miles from our offices to recruit your kids, and they're good, but they're not necessarily any different or better than kids that are coming out of the colleges, so they're close to us. And so the dean of the college got a bunch of people together and said, we need to fix that. And I think to his credit, he looked at it and said, what can we do that helps our students? And then they came up with this leadership and professional development program that's 4 courses that all intended or declared business majors take. And so it's not just the top 10% of the class or the top 20% of the class, but every business major goes through these courses. And they start with strategy first, which is a course I teach. And it's about laying this foundation of business and leadership and what leadership is and how we tackle the world. And I mean, I'm sure, well, it's just you're aware. I mean, everything is connected: business, personal, the whole bit of it. What we learn in marketing connects to accounting, connects to what we learned, after school. And so we lay this foundation for what business is, and then we go through a pretty intensive course on leading and leadership in groups. Professional development, like building a good LinkedIn, how to interview, that sort of thing. And then we come back in their 4th course and do a leadership capstone. And so the idea is to give the students just something a little bit extra. It's beyond the facts and figures that they dive deep into when they take their courses in supply chain or marketing or finance or whatever it might be, so that they can present better, and they understand business, and they understand how that all fits in together, and they answer the interview questions better, and they have that something extra that this firm was mentioning. And fast forward a little bit, and lo and behold, 6-8 years later, this firm does come back and still to this day recruits at ECU, even though it's far afield from their home turf. And so we're really working with stuff that's not necessarily the nuts and bolts of a particular major, but it's more in how you lead, what leadership is, how you present yourself, how to be just those extra things that provide another viewpoint, another vantage point into what makes you a valuable candidate for a company, and also just makes life a little more interesting.
Of the students that have come through the program, and I'm sure you've been you still stay in touch with some and they come back and chat
Yep.
with you. What are the 1 or 2 things on the leadership side that they took away from that program that has separated them from their competitors?
Hmm. You just opened the door to something. Um, we got to do a whole nother show
Yes.
on what I feel is wrong with leadership in America today. But I think that the trick is what I talk to them, and the ones that kind of get it from hopefully from my class come back with this idea that we have somehow in America conflated leadership and management.
Mhm.
And so you see these articles, and I was just reading. I just had an email this morning from a publisher. It's like, hey, do you want to review our textbook? It's about how to be, this guy who was a serial entrepreneur and made $7 billion, or leadership examples from Joe Biden, and that's great. But how many people are going to be Elon Musk or Joe Biden or Jeff Bezos? And without getting too into the nuts and bolts of it, unless you want to, there's a couple kinds of leadership, and what I'm focused on, what I want these kids to take away with this idea of how you be just a leader in your everyday life,
Yep.
how you can be a leader by supporting your manager, how you can be a leader at home, how you can be a leader in, and again, so college kids, so sports team, fraternity, sorority, etc., and bring about desired um, conclusion, get everybody. We define leadership as the ability to get people to voluntarily buy into organizational goals. So you don't have a power structure, you don't have an authority, because that's a management thing. And so how do you work with people, and how do you support and lead as an individual? And I think that's incredibly more important in that where you look at any company or any organization, and it's a pyramid. There's a lot of people at the bottom and only a few people at the top. So we kind of need to quit assuming that everybody's going to get to the top, and we need to make people's lives better wherever they decide to lead them.
And I think one of the biggest misconceptions is only the titles can be leaders, and
No,
that's not
exactly.
anywhere near close to correct.
No, exactly. And I have a personal feud against things, against like the phrase leadership position. It's not. Either you're a leader or you're not. Also, either you have a position or you don't. They're both fine. Don't get me wrong. We need absolutely both of those things. We just need to quit thinking they're the same thing.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you look at the people, the folks in companies that people are drawn to. There's something there, and leadership has nothing to do with the amount of money you can make or are making.
Mhm,
It's the
mhm,
it's mo it a lot of times it's a mentor role where new or younger employees can go to somebody in the company, and I've seen this, from the admin assistant all the way up to the president, um, but people go to that person for knowledge or guidance or something like that, and those are the hidden gems in companies. When you have people at those non-president VP levels that are guiding people and leading people, that's generally pretty good business.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's a great thing I've been working on this last month or so. Um, there's a couple of videos I've been reading about it, but there's this idea of the first follower, which I think is a really interesting case that sort of really sums up my argument. And there's a video. I don't know how much of a plug I want to do, but there's a video called Dancing Guy, I think. Anyway, it's on YouTube. But it's this video from a music festival that turns into this lesson on leadership. And there's an idea of a person doing something. So this is the leader, right? And then there's the first follower. And the first follower is incredibly important because it provides validity to the leader. It shows other people that, okay, now it's not so weird if I decide to come in and follow. But if you want to put this in a business situation, think of it as, you're a manager, and the company decides to have a policy, and maybe people like it, maybe they don't, I don't know. And you say, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give this a shot. We're going to implement this new way of doing things. And you just, in your heart of hearts, pray for that first voice that says, okay, let's give it a shot. So now you've got your first follower, and the rest of the employees or whoever is like, okay, well, if Mike's going to go, okay, that's fine. And so you actually by following provide the leadership for everybody else. And it's a weird, I don't know, it's a Doctor Who reference, kind of timey wimey how that thing works. But you need that first person, so they are technically a follower, but they're in a leadership role. It's a really interesting dynamic that defies this idea of being in a position and being assigned a thing, but just really kind of goes to character
Yeah,
and
and when
and
we
who you
look at
are.
the different chapters in Triangle BNI and how to help them grow, we've not only but we always want to start information or start communication with the president of the chapter, and
Sure.
hopefully they'll, he or she will disseminate it to the other leadership team. But I'm a
Sure.
big fan of identifying who that Pied Piper is. And here's the best example I can give. You have a company of 20 people, and it's Friday at 10 a.m. And the president walks into the area where all the employees are, the bullpen or, conference room, wherever are. Hey, we're doing it's been a good, April's been a good month, or April was a good month. We're meeting at the ale house today at 4 o'clock to have drinks and celebrate. And then a lot of the employees are like, "Oh god, I better go. The president invited us," versus so and so who walks in and says, "Hey folks, it's been a great month. We're all going there." They're the Pied Piper of the
Mhm.
company. And going back to
Sure.
your point, that's who people follow because their leaders is like, "Wow, he or she is always coming up with good ideas. We always have fun. Something comes of that." Certainly if they're saying it, we're going to go. So a lot of times I just tell people, find out who the Pied Piper is, and you can help get your thoughts and ideas across to a company that way.
Now, in that scenario, because that's a brilliant scenario and it works well, could that president of the company be the Pied Piper?
Could be, yes.
Sure, sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. So you can be both, you can be one or the other,
Mhm.
or you can be neither.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, everybody who's not the president is not the president.
Yeah.
You can't choose that. You can vie to be the president. You can run for election, or you can do whatever you want to do. You can buck for a promotion. You can whatever you want, but you always have that choice of whether you want to be the leader or not. And to be that guy that says, come on, he's not so bad. He's the president. He's all right. But this will be fun. Let's go have a beer and talk about
Yeah.
April. And then that's the guy. That's your first follower,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
the thing that you can do no matter who you are.
Yes.
And that's the thing that we need more than, because we always have presidents. Management is an incredible position, and it's an incredible science, and companies obviously need that, and the firm and the structure and how we proceed, absolutely. So we need to concentrate on not this, 7 hacks to be an invincible leader. It's how to just people in their daily lives, plus at the end of the day you just have a better life.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
you're happier. Things are just better.
and my biggest pet peeve in management and leadership, and for everybody watching and listening, hear me now, because if this is you, stop doing this. We get a lot of pressure from, or back in the day, it may not be going on as much because I've been out of the corporate world for a while. But back in the day in the corporate world, the president would always say, "Hey, my door is open. Come talk to me anytime." All right.
Yeah.
That's wrong in my mind because that puts all the pressure on the employee to do all the work. The
Mhm.
good manager, the good leader comes into your office, sits down, "Chip, how's it going? What are you working on? How can I help?"
Yeah,
That's a
that is.
good manager and a good leader right there.
Yep, yep, yep. Yep, that is, and there's a weird power dynamic with that sort of. If you need me, come find me. Is an
Right.
odd question, and I
Yep.
don't like it. I think it's very important. I think obviously a lot of this revolves around some of the stuff that Simon Sinek has surfaced, and it's this idea of having a safe spot. And I always had rules, like I said, in that corporate experience. My rule at that point was, I mean, if something's bugging you, and you come into my office and you shut the door, you're allowed to say anything you want to say,
Agreed.
and it may involve a decision. And if it comes down to a decision, we're talking power structure. I maybe have to be the person that makes that decision. And in order for the freedom to say anything you want, you have to agree with me that once the door's open, you buy into the decision, right? And we don't have to agree on it, but you have to support. And so there's that freedom to do that. But I understand what you're saying about this open door policy is it's a power dynamic, and
Yes.
it's not a good one.
And the door's rarely open because they're always in meetings or traveling, and it's a myth anyways, but
Yeah.
that it took me a while to figure out that's wrong, but once I figured out that was wrong, I never bought into that, and if I remember right, in my management opportunities, I always made sure, 'cause I've had some really good managers and really good bosses, and I started watching them make the rounds, and
Yeah.
things got done a whole lot better. There was better communication, but more importantly, there was buy-in from the staff. It's like, wow.
Mm.
So he or she came and sat in my office. We actually talked about a project I was working on, and they really thought I had some good ideas, and they were happy to hear those. But it's because they came into my office. And man, when you get buy-in from your team and they know you're listening, man, that's gold right there.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting that happens, and I think this is um, a fundamental issue, and especially large corporations. People watch for that thing, and so you're talking about that. Those people that are doing that, and I think it's a great thing. But then at some point, that got turned into, I'm sure you remember, management by walking around. And so now you had managers that weren't really all that plugged in and weren't really leaders at all, just knew that they had to walk around and ask
Yep.
people how they're doing. So they only think the guy from Office Space, right?
Yes.
But so you turn it into this philosophy. I mean, it's like me reading the Tiger Woods story about how he came up, and then go find my kids or grandkids and force them into golfing, right? No, that just happened to work for Tiger. So
Yep.
let's just not worry about that. And figure out how it works for ourselves. So don't create a thing. Well, I have to spend 3.5 minutes with each of my employees because that's what management by walking around says. Go to the heart of the thing and says, no, I need to get out and be more involved. And there's plenty of ways to do that. And so you don't particularly want to buy into a philosophy, but you want to internalize the philosophy, right? For an example, I read a lot. It's one of those things, you can't tell it in my life, but I'm kind of a fan of minimalism. But it's one of those, you should have seen me 5 years ago, right? But this idea that is minimalistic, and I was listening to some podcasts and reading, and somebody would get up and ask a question, they'd explain the answer, and then the next person would get up and say, okay, great, I understand what you've said, which is you're going to see a lie. And I'll say, but, right, I get the idea of minimalism, but I'm a painter. So how many colors do I need to be minimal? Like an 8 box of crayons or 16 box of crayons? And I think, come on, people, it's not the number. It's the idea of, do you have more than you need? And you have to determine what you need. And so you have to internalize the philosophy, and you have to internalize the thought process and not get hung up on. So in this idea of what management by walking around, you don't have to say, well, I'm going to spend 30 seconds with each of my employees. The idea is you have to get out there. One employee may take 60 minutes. One employee may take 10 minutes. It doesn't matter. But there's a concept of equity versus fairness. And this is really an equity issue. You don't all get the same thing, like literally, but you all get what you need. And that's the important part. And so we have to internalize these thoughts, and we have to act on them in a way that is not being super legalistic and saying, well, I did the 3 steps you said to do. Why didn't it work out? It's, well, because your heart wasn't in it. That's why.
Yeah. Because you were told to do it instead of you wanted to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that is your daytime hat that you wear, your college professorship.
I do that. Yeah.
Nighttime, though.
I feel people sometimes get a little weirded out when they find out I teach leadership and professional development, because,
you're one of those professors, huh?
Yeah.
Well, you got the beard, and so that denotes knowledge right there, right?
That's what I'm going for. I'm glad it worked.
Yeah. Now, sometimes you wear it out, and sometimes you wear it in. What determines how you wear your beard?
Honestly, a lot of it is the weather, because if it's like cold and you wear a zipper jacket, zippers and beards are really a bad idea. Yeah.
And how long have you had the length of that beard?
3 years.
Okay. And was this a bet?
No, it was a thing where it was just kind of growing on. I thought, well, I've never really had a long beard, so I let it grow long. And then I thought, man, I wonder if I could, you see, stuff. I wonder if I could braid it. I wonder if that'd be cool to have a braided beard, right? I mean, why not? So let's let it grow and let's see what happens. And then pandemic hits, and my barber decides to not be a barber anymore. And I was like, well, I'm done with that. So I just haven't bothered to do anything for the last 2.5 years.
Well, yeah, you need to go to a barber now for your chin, not your head, right?
Yeah. I just said it's the effects of gravity as you age. It's really.
Is that cheaper or better?
It's not better. It is a little cheaper. Beard trims tend to be a little cheaper. They'll say beard trim. It's like, haircut's like $25. Beard trim's like $10. I'm like, yeah. And then I walk in and like, no.
Yeah. And no. What do family members say about the look?
They tend to roll their eyes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But as I'm sure you're aware, you hit a certain chronology point where you really don't care.
So don't care. I tell people I was born without a filter, and the older I get, the less I'm looking for it, because I don't really care. You can call me, you can hang up on me. Doesn't matter. Don't really care. So yeah.
There you go.
You got to be you, which leads into your nighttime job, the artistic part of Chip.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a sad story about.
Well,
a search for, but they, search for wealth instead of fame or something. I
Yeah.
don't know. It turned into like get a real job, kid, kind of thing.
As long as you're happy, but you work with the Greenville Civic Ballet, and now hang on a sec. Now I have to do the pause because I could say you're a member of the Greenville Civic Ballet, and I would pregnant pause and people would go, and then I say in the lighting department, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, right.
Picture me in point shoes. Yeah. 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 That happened. It really does go back to, well, it was college, where that's technical theater was going to be my major, and I was going to, and then things change and stuff, and
Yeah.
people and all that kind of thing. So it's always just been a thing I like to do, and I've worked with them, and then just across the way, Farmville Community Arts Council, Magnolia Arts Center in Greenville, North Carolina Academy of Dance Arts, Greenville Civic Ballet. Just you get in with some folks that do that sort of thing and do shows and plays and musicals and direct, and just it's in a community theater sort of way. And so you just meet folks and make the relationships. And I called up and said, hey, you want to do this? And I said, sure, I do. And we finished up this one, and they say, hey, our recital's coming up in June. Do you want to do that? And I'm like, sure. So it's a community involvement thing. It's a love of theater. It's a joy of thinking of technical theater as a profession, and not as a refuge for people who didn't get parts in the show. So
Would you like to regale us with some of your onstage credits back in the day?
I have not had an onstage credit, I think, since I was 12.
And you played the third flower on the
No,
right?
wait. That's not true. I did stuff in high school. I haven't been on stage since after high school, but 12, I probably peaked at 12 when I was Winthrop in The Music Man.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
And actually, after the show one time, I didn't know it then, but my career peaked when the lady asked me if I said, I'm sorry, this is probably a rude question, but do you really have a lisp? And I said, no. I felt my acting chops were good enough that they thought I had a speech impediment, which is great.
So Ronnie Howard, better known as Opie, paved the way for you, or you paved the way for him in that role?
My grandmother called me Opie when I was a baby, and I don't know if she just thought I looked like Ronnie Howard or what. I don't know, but if there's any paving to be done, I'm pretty sure Ron's doing the paving.
Yeah, he's got to do it. All right. Speaking of money and talent,
I'm more the guy with the big orange bag that just walks down the road and kind of picks up the trash along the way. But Mr. Howard has done all the paving.
You just have talent. He's got money and talent, right?
Well, talent's arguable, but I definitely don't have money. So yeah, I'm agreeing with that. Absolutely.
Do you, in your role on the lighting side of that, do you work with other students, and are you kind of managing them?
This is actually no. The answer is no. This is like I says, community theater. So we're actually doing the thing. A lot of the dance, the two dance companies that we work with are definitely the dance students do the dancing, but it's a fairly involved production. And in the fall we do the Greenville, the North Carolina Academy of Dance does a Nutcracker, full-on ballet up until the pandemic with a full orchestra. So it was a large production that we do in a week. And so that crew is pretty straightforward. You've got to get the show done. It's not really a training ground. Although, if somebody wanted to, we do have some kids, some students, kids that are high school students or college students that are part of the crew, but it's not inherently a, it's not a sort of a mentoring thing. It's sort of like you've actually literally got to get the show done. And so, yeah.
And the first local show you worked on was what and when?
Local, 2006. I was probably some assistant stage runner. I think the show was Ragtime.
Okay. Were you the grip or the best boy?
I'd like to think I was the best boy, but we'll leave that up to other people to determine. But yeah, it's definitely grip-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike Monkey for the sound guy.
What's the best show you've seen done locally that you've been a part of?
See, now you're being rude because I'm gonna have to pick one of my shows.
That's fair.
Yeah. So to the best, let me see if I can separate the two. First of all, the easier answer to me is really like theater, and so I got into directing, and I do that when I can. And I thought a really good, well, I didn't, the cast did a really smashing job of Death of a Salesman. Um, not late entertainment, but was really good. And um, I did a beautiful, wonderful rendition of a show called Title of Show. If you haven't seen Title of Show, you need to see that. It's a wonderful story about two guys writing a play about two guys writing a play about two guys writing a play.
Sounds like Affleck and Damon in the early days.
Kind of, yeah, yeah. But these two guys actually did it, and they said we got a month for this New York Theater Festival. Let's write a show. So they wrote about writing the show. They won that, and they went to Broadway and they wrote about that. So it's the writing about the writing about the writing about. That's a wonderful little musical called Title of Show. I love that. Um, and I did a really fun rendition of Picnic, which was good. So those are the ones that I did that I really like that stand out.
Well, you were using your leadership skills as director then, correct?
I mean, sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
You can go
actually,
with
yeah.
saying that.
No, yeah, it is. No, it is in that way of creating a larger thing that, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, maybe right. And it falls into what they said, like Lao Tzu says about when the leader's best work is done, the people say we did it ourselves. And I think in that way, directing is very much that. It's having a vision, it's understanding it, it's bringing people along, it's getting them to buy into it voluntarily, and then allowing them to finish it, which is
Yeah.
very much that way. Yeah.
I would imagine on the
I mean, sure,
lighting.
if you want to make everything work, sure.
Yes. Agreed. Yeah.
Thanks.
I would imagine on the lighting and the sound side, the technology has played a key role over the years.
Yeah, and different too. This is the first show I've ever done that's it's all LED, which is a completely different sort of lighting system. I mean, it used to be like here's the light, you plug it in, and then you made it brighter or dimmer, right? LEDs have 4 channels, addressable lighting, and multiple. The one light just changes colors based on how you program it, and it's all digital and electronic. So yeah, it's changed. It's also 500 degrees cooler, which is really nice.
I was going to say, I think originally, if I remember, they were Clegg lights. They're like
Yeah,
the size of a water cooler, and they
yeah,
beat and
yeah.
they're as hot as the sun.
Yeah, yeah, and they talk about color temperature, and they're not lying. It's literally the temperature of the bulb determined what color the light was, and so it's almost like they're measuring these things in Kelvin, because there are lighting fixtures across several states that still probably have some of my skin burned on them from touching them when they're too hot. So almost have no fingerprint. But yeah, but the technology has changed, and now you could even kind of like everything else, almost pretty much just have it on like an iPad or a tablet or something, and you don't have these big old clunky consoles anymore. So has really changed a lot, especially with LED technology in the lighting world.
You mean you don't have that huge lighting and sound table exactly with 82
Yeah,
knobs at your,
yeah.
you know,
I
move
got to
that.
tell you, I'm a little sad about that.
You miss those
Yeah,
days.
because like anybody could walk around with an iPad and nobody
Yeah.
knows what's going on, but you stand behind that thing, you're like, ooh, this guy knows what he's doing, right? Now it's just like, oh, look, and I tend to call him the pretentious sound guy who just walks around with his iPad, like, yes, I've got this.
Yeah.
It's like, man,
I'm with you. Not impressed. I like the
you
big
need you
board
need like
there.
100 buttons, and you need
Yeah.
lights jumping up and down, and gauges and dials and all that kind of stuff. That's what you need.
Oh, yeah, you've got tape by each one to remind you what it is, and
Yep.
of the 82, they're only using like 9, but it looks impressive, the fact that there are
Well,
82 knobs on it.
but that's the thing, right? Which 9 are they using?
I know.
That's the question. Yeah.
Oh, but I could imagine back in the day just the hanging the lights and you're up there and you gotta turn it just a little bit this way. No, 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 go back a little bit, and,
Yeah. Yeah.
you got the big step ladder way up high,
Yep.
right? You're
Yeah.
hanging
I
on
was
to
up
that.
up on the ladder the other night doing that. Yep. Yeah. I'd tell you, I think one of my favorite recent show stories. It's not necessarily about a brilliant production, but um, for those of you who have spoiler alert, the Nutcracker, right? There's a part where at the beginning it's the party and they get the toys and they hand them out, and then essentially the young girl goes to sleep and has these dreams, and Act Two is her dreams and the sugar plum fairy and all that sort of stuff. And so we have to do this thing where we we realized we couldn't actually shrink the people, and so we had to make the set bigger. And so we do this every year, and it's all kinds of stuff and behind the scenes and how we make things look bigger and all that. But one of the things is it's just been the bane of my existence and my responsibility is to make the Christmas tree grow. And so we start with a short Christmas tree, and there's some tricks behind it, but it's hooked up to a winch backstage. And at one point in the middle of the thing, you hit that winch, and this, the stage manager's director calling, go, get that tree. So you pull that, and the winch pulls the tree up, and everything's fine. And of course, you're doing it, in the middle of a live performance in a dark space and all of that. And at one point, one show, it went to hit the button, and the winch just did nothing.
Ooh.
It turned it off, turned it back on. And it wasn't quite so dark that I didn't notice the smoke coming out of the winch motor. And of course, everybody's on headset, and that's the fun thing to be, is to hear the chatter behind the show, and they're yelling at me. And I said, the winch is smoking, and the director says, well, fix it. But what? I mean, literally, they're still dancing. And so I reach over to just jump on the rope and pull this like 600-pound Christmas tree up. And I kind of feel somebody coming over my shoulder, and this other stagehand comes over and jumps on the rope and grabs the rope. And the both of us are kind of in a decidedly not smooth motion, the tree actually grows to make the room look smaller. And this guy was a brilliant rescue for this guy, but for 2 years I called him Counterweight because I didn't know his name, and I know he helped me lift that tree. So yeah, so this day, I think he's still on my phone as Counterweight if I ever need to call him. But
do people bring up those stories? Oh yeah, I remember this show one day when that happened, or they quickly forget about them?
No, it's the glory days of stagehand. This is like, this thing happened and that thing happened, and who did you meet and who did you know? And and this goes, and I just have all kinds of fun stories about the time when I was relatively underage, going to college in a dry county, and ended up on the Little River Band's tour bus having a beer with them after a show set up one day. And so you get to do these fun things and these fun people. And I think if you're a performer, you love the performance, but if it's decidedly two camps of people, right? There's this making the performance happen. I have a T-shirt that says this is technical theater, because nude mime in the dark just doesn't sell tickets, right? And so there's this idea that this is what we create, this space that we create, and there's an interesting attitude in that too. And the people that love to do it is what we do is we create a space for these other people to do what they love to do. Mm. And it's a very separate but equal sort of attitude, right? Actors can't get along without us, and we really have nothing to do if we don't have actors. So it's a really interesting microcosm. But yeah, you put a couple stagehands together, and it goes to stories immediately.
Oh yeah, that's what you want to hear.
You remember Eddie Money? I know you want to know another story. Do you know the story? Remember Eddie Money?
Yep.
He had a little accident at one point, and he had fallen asleep, probably not naturally, and had spent a lot of, both his leg curled up under him. And so he had problems because his leg was like literally asleep for like hours, and he had some circulation issues and some stuff. And it had been after my senior year. My senior year of college, and I had an accident myself and had a broken leg. And the stage manager said, "Hey, Eddie Money's coming to play our college. Come on back. You can be a stagehand, kind of quote unquote, and you can hang out." So I said, "Great." So I was kind of back there watching people do stuff, hobbling around on this cane that I had, just a crutch because I had a broken bone. And Eddie Money goes by on his cane, looks at me and says, "What'd you do?" And so we had this kind of 5-minute conversation that I'm sure I remembered for a whole lot longer than he's remembered it.
Yes.
But, you just run into folks, and you just get in these situations, and it's really, really interesting.
When I was I think it's my freshman or sophomore year at Tennessee, a friend of mine worked on the committee that there was concerts that came to town, and there's this group that basically the grunts during the day that unloaded all the equipment. And we would get tickets to the show. And he said, "Hey, I want you to help me with this. Commodores are playing here next Saturday night, and they need people to unload stuff." I'm like, "All right, I'm there." So we got everything unloaded and got it on the stage. And my claim to fame with the Commodores is I got to play, hit 2 keys on Lionel Richie's baby grand piano on stage. Not that anybody knew, but that's my claim to fame to the music world. Other than that, I have no skills or talent to be in the music
Yeah.
industry. So.
Yeah, but no, those are just the great stories.
Yeah.
I was in the
Yeah.
worked at college radio.
Yeah.
And
And
was
good.
no, and that Little River Band thing was I trying to interview them, but they were late for sound check, and I was under pressure for an interview, so I didn't interview the stage manager, tour manager, who'd never been interviewed before. So his first ever radio interview was me at 17 or 18 or something. But he had just come off of the Earth, Wind, and Fire tour.
Ooh.
Where they went with 9 semis.
Wow.
Yeah, I just can't imagine setting up and tearing down 9 semis worth of stuff. Yeah, but there's the stories they tell about the people and the places and the things are fascinating.
Yeah, and those are the people you want to talk to. You don't necessarily need to talk to the artist. You want to talk to the people behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's a wonderful.
They see everything and they hear everything. And if those are the tell-all books you want.
Yeah,
those would be the fun ones. I'm sure somebody wrote one day that I haven't read yet. But anyways, Chip, if anybody out there needs help with Legal Shield or any questions, we've been putting Chip's phone number on the screen here. I think the best way he summed it up was it's insurance. You have car insurance, you have home insurance. This can be legal insurance for, even if you have just a couple questions here and there, you never know when you're going to need it, but you need somebody like Chip that can at least help explain to you what all is involved and how it could help you. So, anyways, I hope, the show, so the show you're working on last night is finished.
Yeah, it wrapped last night. We did 6 performances in 2 days.
All right. Ho hum. Right. That's a weekend for you, right? So the next show you have coming up is when?
Spend my weekends in little dark rooms.
Yeah. Enough said on that. We'll leave it at that. Yes.
Yeah. I got 1 in May and 1 in June. So.
All right. So anyways, if you're in the Greenville area and you want to see one of the great lighting directors, unassuming
in Greenville. I mean, it's not really great outside of Greenville. There's a little supply and demand issue going on here that's working in my favor.
But at least you can say you know somebody or you know of somebody on that show, and that's your connection to the music and the artistic world, just like we've been sharing ours. So anyways, Chip, it's always a blast catching up with you. Good luck with the shows.
I might want to tell you, it's coming back because this is the second time. I feel like this is like being on the Johnny Carson show and getting invited to come over and sit on the couch. Hey, I think I've been invited back. So
you got to earn your way on. So glad you could.
I'm taking that as a highlight of my life.
As you should, and I'm sure in the memoirs you'll write later on. I just want to be a footnote. And I'll be happy.
You may be in most of a chapter.
Yeah, I like it. So anyways, good luck with the next shows coming up, and we will see everybody next time on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.